Today we have Cesar Villegas, who is originally from Mexico but moved to Portland, Oregon when he was just 13. Amazingly, only 5 Mexican nationals have finished PBP, and Cesar's 2023 time is the fastest of all Mexicans that have participated. That's a time of 72 hours and 16 minutes. Cesar has ridden with both the Oregon and Seattle Randonneurs. His first brevet was in 2021. Cesar's PBP is a story of coming back from the brink of a DNF to finishing in a fast time. Cesar, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Glad to be here, and I appreciate you calling 72:16 a fast time. I was hoping for a little bit quicker.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It is pretty fast, though. Okay.
Thank you.
It's not Adrian Hans. Okay. It's not even close. Okay. So there you go. All right. So I always like to start with this question. What does completing PBP mean to you?
I think it's in current society we kind of have it all in some ways. Like we can have all the objects that we want, with a little bit of work. But this is something that not everybody can have without a bunch of just going to dark places, and that's both training and doubting yourself and kind of those low moments. So that's kind of what it meant, right? Like it was something that wasn't material. It was something that was very difficult to achieve, but it wasn't material. It was all kind of like in my memories and in that sort of untouchable realm of existence. So
Sure.
no, I don't want to assign too much depth to it, but it really is
Okay.
kind of what it is. I think we seek this like endurance cycling
Yeah.
or running or trekking really for to get somewhere that we otherwise wouldn't get, right? Like
Yeah.
you only get to those places sometimes by really going in the red sometimes.
So true. And we'll hear about you going in the red later. Okay. So tell me, what did it feel like at the finish line?
I was heat exhausted at that finish line. I don't
Okay.
remember very much. I
Yeah.
remember I just wanted to eat. I wanted to have a soda. And I was very lucky that a couple of people from the Seattle Rando group who didn't ride were kind of waiting for finishers, and they
Yeah.
were just watching dots on their phones, and so they kind of knew when to expect someone based on their speed. And so there were two wonderful ladies from Seattle, John and Kasia, and they kind of just like brought me back to life.
Oh, that's great.
I wasn't delirious. It was 4 p.m.,
Yeah.
so I was awake. But
Yeah.
just getting there and having somebody like point and tell you what to do and not having to
Okay.
like work with your own brain, it was like put your
Yeah.
bike there, go to
That's
that
nice.
person and have your like final stamp and your validated thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what now? And
That's good.
they fed
And
me and then they gave me
yeah.
soda and it was great.
So when did kind of the feeling of accomplishment kick in? I'm assuming it kicked in eventually.
I mean, I think, yeah, I think it was maybe on the train back to Paris. So I
Yeah.
didn't spend a lot of time in Rambouillet back when I got back.
Yeah.
I ate, I showered, I waited for a couple of friends who were still on the road and kind of did a little, had a beer with them kind of. But my family, so my wife, my mom, and my daughter were in Paris. So they had
Wow.
traveled with me, and then I abandoned them to go do this ride. So they were
Yeah.
in Paris, and so
Yeah.
I kind of had this like family obligation. Like now I've done this thing where I've abandoned my wife with my 2-year-old kid. I got to get back, right? So I think it was
Yes.
probably on that train ride back to Paris that I was like,
Yeah.
all right, that was something. That was something really cool. And I'm trying to process all the different feelings. The hospitality of the people. I
Yeah.
know that people
So
really talk
true.
about that. People really talk about how amazing the people are on the route, but you really have to experience it. It's just so cool.
Cool. Agreed. So let's just go back to the start. Maybe you can tell me about your background in cycling, some of your earliest memories, perhaps in Mexico. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So I grew up in Mexico, and I guess I have a big influence from my grandfather. He was just kind of a not a sporting cyclist, but very much a ride my bike whenever I can. So everywhere he'd go, if
Yeah.
he could bike there, he would take his bike, and he would just as long as he was able to physically, he rode that bike, which I think was kind of a big influence for me. As a kid, I rode my bike like any other kid. It was a toy more or less. But definitely as I got a little bit older and I was able to like, recognize places in the city and how to get to a place and how to get home, it definitely kind of gives you that freedom, right? Where like, okay, I can go there and it's gonna take me not that much time because I'm on a bike. And Mexico is I think it's a little bit of a dangerous country to ride your bike on. Like cars are a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's just people everywhere. There's pedestrians everywhere and bikes everywhere. So it kind of reduces the speed of cars, and it's just more of like a flow of people rather than like traffic control. So it's dangerous and difficult in a different way, right? Like if you want to go into it with like a very organized brain, it can be a little dangerous. But if you embrace the chaos, it's gonna.
Okay. And Cesar, that was Guadalajara, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you live in the center or outskirts?
So I am from the city. I lived in I didn't live in downtown Guadalajara, but I am from the city, so I was a city boy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. I've been there a few times, as I said. It's a gorgeous city. Really is.
I try to go back as often as I can, and unfortunately I don't make it back often enough, but
Yeah. Do you remember then coming to Portland? Was there a cycling culture back then, or do you remember, did you have a bike when you were 13? Or
That really wasn't at all in my life when I in that period of my life, I guess. When I was in middle school and in high school, like I had a bicycle, and I guess I do remember one time that, and this was after I was driving. I had my license, so I could drive, and I wanted to see my girlfriend, and I'm sure I had done something. I don't remember what I did, but my parents had taken away my keys, right? Like I wasn't allowed to take the car, and I had this like old rickety bike, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna ride my bike. Like they said I couldn't drive. They didn't say I couldn't leave the house.
Nice.
So I remember like riding my bike to my girlfriend's house, and she kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you riding a bike? But it really
your grandfather would have been proud, by the way.
Exactly. I like to think that for sure.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until college that it kind of, and again, it was transportation driven, right? It's easy to have a bike when you're in college and go, go places, go to class, go to a bar. But then that's kind of when the more like, okay, let's do it as a leisurely activity kind of really started for me.
And then, Cesar, you're 33 now, so, and you did your first brevet in 2021. Like, when did the obsession kick in, the sickness? When did that happen?
Yeah. So I probably like really started getting serious about cycling, maybe like in 2013, 2014.
Okay.
But I think like being a serious cyclist means different things to different people, right?
Yeah.
So for many years, I was doing road rides and mountain bike rides and all these things with my friends, but like 100 miles was like crazy, right? Like, like I would do that once a year, and it was like a big deal. Like, oh, I'm gonna do a century, and it was a big deal. And one of the people who I used to work with, he was a randonneur. He came from Indiana and then to Texas, and then he came to Oregon, and there was like a small competition inside my company for cycling in the month of May.
Okay.
And I would always kick butt, right? Because I would commute to work and I would do this weekend ride. So like I was always riding a whole bunch. And then this guy shows up, and all of a sudden he's got like, 125 miles, 190 miles. I'm like, who is this guy? What is he doing?
Who does he think he is? There you go. Yeah.
And so it was a little bit of friendly competition there, but we became great friends, and he kind of, I would see this guy, and he wasn't like he didn't look like an ultra athlete. He just looked like a regular guy. He was in shape, but you'd never think that he was on his bike for 12, 13, 18 hours on a Saturday, right?
So is that where you kind of heard about PBP? Was it from him?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I heard from him. And we were friends for many years before I even tried a brevet. So you would kind of talk about it, and I would kind of cheer him on. Like I thought it was something cool that he did. I was like, that's not for me, but good for you, bro. But he's done PBP 4 times now, I think.
Oh wow! So had he already done PBP when you first met him? Okay.
Yes, he had already done PBP. So he had stories about PBP, and so he was getting ready for 2019.
Yeah.
PBP, and we talked about a whole bunch, and he tried to get me some rides. I never listened, but when he was doing the ride, I think he had this like small hope that maybe he would do Charly Miller. So he was gonna start
Okay.
fast and see if he could hold on.
Yeah.
So I was watching his dot, and
Yeah.
even that, even just watching somebody else's dot was so exciting. Like,
Yeah.
and you look at this big map, from Paris to Brest, and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, how is somebody do actually, like, not somebody, right, but 8,000
Yes.
people doing this.
Yeah.
And so I think definitely when he did it in 2019, and I watched it on the computer kind of happen,
Yeah.
it was like, okay, like maybe I should give this a try.
Did he manage to do Charlie Miller or not?
He did not. He pulled the
Okay.
plug kind of early, and I was
Okay.
texting him. I was like, "What are you doing? Stop resting so much."
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's funny. So maybe, so then obviously it was in the back of your mind, 2019, you had seen it.
Yeah.
So you said, I'm definitely I want to be like that guy. I want to beat him at one thing eventually. Is that right? Like, did you immediately make the
No,
decision or it took a while?
no. It took a while. I think at
Yeah.
that moment I was still very much like, that's a crazy thing. Like,
Yeah.
whatever the distance is, 750 miles. That's insane, right? Like,
Okay.
no way.
Yeah.
In how many days? Like 3 days, 4 days, not
Yeah.
happening. But then, I think with the pandemic, uh, we're working from home or a little bit more inside. I was riding a lot
Yeah.
less. Like, all of my commuting kind of, got kiboshed.
Yeah.
And really, the only thing that felt safe to do with people was to be outside,
Yeah.
hiking, backpacking, and in the case with this friend, was riding bikes. And so, we did a lot of rides around the city together, but his thing was rando. And so
Yeah.
he kind of pulled me a little bit more, and I'm like, okay, well, I have time. I'm
Yeah.
not riding my bike as much as I'd like to. So let's give this whole rando thing a try. And I think I did a 200, a 300, and a 400 that first year.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah.
and they were all painful. I think the 200
Yes.
was probably okay, but the 3 and the 4 were definitely more difficult. So yeah,
And you rode with your friend each time, is that right?
yes,
And then you rode both Oregon, Randonneurs as well as Seattle.
correct,
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and he was awesome because I know that in the rando community is, and I tell this to people, that you kind of have to ride your own pace. Like, you can't ride a whole lot faster. You should not wait for other people.
Yeah.
And he was great. I think in the back of his mind, he was kind of laughing at me because on the 300, I remember, like, it was kind of getting
Yeah.
dark, and I was like, I need to stop, dude. I can't do this
Yes.
anymore. So, we pulled over. We took like a little 10-minute nap on the side of the road, and
Yes.
and he was just such a good sport. So
That's
I think
cool.
he was just a good ambassador for the sport.
Yeah. And I think you probably had a small kid or just had a baby around then. How did your wife feel about this new obsession of yours?
Yeah, so I think that was when our kid was coming up. So she wasn't born yet. So my very first
Okay.
year of rando was when my wife was pregnant. And then, yeah, so my second year of rando, where I did a lot more riding, I
Yeah.
did quite a few more brevets, including a 1,000K. That's
Oh,
when we had a under year old at home. So yeah, my wife, she's been crazy supportive.
that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
she's been
great.
crazy supportive of me, and I get the pandemic definitely, not
Yes.
to minimize the effect of the pandemic, but it helped us in some ways,
Yeah.
because
I agree.
we both work from home. We both, we're both engineers, so we can kind of do a
Yeah.
work from home, and we're a little bit more flexible with our time, I
That's
guess.
cool.
Yeah.
So when you decided to do PBP 2023, you obviously were thinking in the back of your mind, maybe the front of your mind, Charlie Miller. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And with that intention, you had done 1,000 the year before. And
Mm-hmm.
is that which event is that? Was that?
It was one with Seattle Randonneurs. It was an event. It was, luckily, that happened to be that year.
Yeah.
And it had been rescheduled a few times for
Yeah.
different reasons. Like, I think there was a fire, and I think the one I actually did, they renamed it like Third Time's the Charm, because it was like the second time that it
Okay.
had been rescheduled.
All right. Yeah.
And
Okay.
even the one we did, it actually had to be rerouted because of wildfires.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. So completing that obviously gave you a certain amount of confidence. You said this is easy. PBP is just another 200K. Is that right?
You know what? Actually, it was so difficult because
Okay.
my all my contact points on the bike were wrong for such
Okay.
a long ride
Yeah,
that it really kind of kicked. I think it was good because it really highlighted all the things that were wrong with my bike and with
that's
my
good. Yeah.
my approach. So I fixed a lot of things before I did,
Yeah.
and I knew what to fix. Like I knew what to focus on. Like this is not working for this long of a ride.
And did you try to go fast for that 1000, or you just wanted to complete it to just figure out what you needed to learn?
It was just to complete it. We did not try to
Yeah.
go fast. It was a three loop center on the same hotel, and
Okay.
so it was basically we had a specific overnight, and
Yeah.
there was no reward for continuing going. Like once you
Perfect.
finish the loop for the day,
Okay.
you could keep going, but there was kind of no reason.
Cool. So then PBP 2023, you want to do a Charlie Miller, your
Hmm.
stretch goal, I think you said in
Yep.
your thing. You had done 1,000, so that got you in the A wave, which I think
Correct.
is important. Any other kind of strategies you had going in to try to do a fast PBP time?
I think that was it. I mean, I think it
Okay.
was it was I train a bit both on the doing the SR series that you need to qualify,
Yeah.
obviously more riding than that, and also kind of some go fast training, I would say. So I was
Yeah.
pretty fit in 2023. So that was my whole strategy: go with the A group, try to hang
Yeah.
on for as long as I could.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk.
Um,
Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Okay.
yeah.
Um, okay. And did you go with your friend? Both of you were trying to do Charlie Miller or not? Or you were by yourself?
I was by myself. I was by myself.
Okay.
Yeah, my friend who got me into rando, he was there again, but his goals were totally different for this one.
Okay.
He just
I
wanted to
get you.
enjoy it, which is good.
Okay. That's
But I
good.
did have two other friends. One
Yeah.
other friend who wanted to do Charlie Miller, and he was a couple waves behind me.
Yeah, I get you. Maybe just let's talk about logistics
Hmm.
first
Yeah,
before we talk about the actual event, because it's always challenging. I think people underestimate how difficult logistics are, and you kind of ramped up the complexity by bringing your family with
yeah,
a 2-year-old.
yeah,
So tell me about that.
yeah. So we decided to make the trip, and luckily my mom agreed to come with us, and so that was good. But yeah, we flew through London, and my whole plan was like we're gonna take a single flight from Seattle, where we flew from Seattle because my wife's family is there. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was our whole plan. We're gonna fly from Seattle, single flight. My bike hopefully only has to make one transfer, not a big
nice.
deal. And then I just take a train. And I
Yeah,
had been in Europe enough that I was like, trains are awesome in Europe.
exactly.
The the the
What
the,
can go
tr-
wrong?
the,
Yeah,
the train from
yeah,
London to Paris is not as
yeah.
awesome. I'll
You
tell
see,
you that.
London isn't Europe. We should know that,
Yeah,
isn't that right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part I didn't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we make it to London. We spent a couple days there. I realized that I couldn't assemble my bike in London because that train service does not allow assembled bikes. It had to be a packaged bike. So
Yeah.
now that kind of threw a wrench in my plan. So I get to Paris with one day to spare, and carrying a heavy bike case and my
Yeah.
luggage. So it was a bit of a trip, but made it
Yeah.
there. I left my wife and my mom and my kid in London. I think they had a
Okay.
grand old time. They kept sending me
Exactly.
pictures.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit stressful, but I made it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think definitely because there's so many new details to get to that start line,
Hmm.
and any one of those details, if can go wrong, bad
Yeah,
things can happen. I know it happened to me once, twice actually.
yeah, and
Both
it's
times I had issues.
it's a bunch of little stressors, because I wasn't
Yes.
planning to have a bike case. So now I had a bike case, and an empty bike case that I didn't
Yeah.
want to carry with me. So luckily, the hotel that I stayed at in Paris allowed me to just leave it there. They didn't charge me any
Yeah.
money, actually. They were very
Yeah.
gracious and
That's
just held,
cool.
held on to it for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you remember what did the start line feel like? Were you nervous? This is Group A,
Yeah,
Wave A,
Group
like
A. Yeah, Wave
semi-pro people, very, very
A.
fast. Yeah,
Very fast. Yeah, no, it
yeah,
felt it was a party atmosphere in Rambouillet, I guess.
yeah,
I got nerves like most people, I guess.
yeah,
I wasn't specifically anxious about anything. So I was just trying to relax, go through the checks, kind of take it
yeah,
all in because it is really cool. I'm a little bit of a bike geek, so just kind of like looking at everyone's bikes and
yeah,
kind of trying to see like the lights they have, the setups they have. It was pretty
yeah,
cool. So I try to just relax and not really think about anything other than that. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, getting to the start line was something else, I guess, and it was hot.
Um,
So
yeah, I remember it being hot. And like everyone says this about the first few waves, it can be very, very fast, also quite dangerous in the
hmm
beginning. Did you
hmm
feel that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I have quite a bit of experience riding in packs like that. But
Yeah,
this was something else. This was much larger, right? Like this is
yeah,
the largest pack I've ever ridden in. And yeah, it was just, I mean, it was fast, very, very fast. And
yeah,
just the nature of the terrain is those rolling hills, right? So there's that kind of stretch and compress. And that really is what makes it dangerous. I
yeah,
think people mostly ride within their limits and nobody was being like a jerk like you might encounter on a bicycle race, which is
yeah,
kind of what I'm used to. But it was just that constant compression and extension that goes on for hours. I mean, you just kind of have to be focused the entire
yeah.
time, and
Oh my
that's a
God.
tough part.
Yeah. Like Charlie Miller, 56 hours, maybe 40 minutes. I
Hmm.
always forget what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of focus, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about it. Anyway, continue with tell us about the rest of the PBP.
Yeah. So I started very fast. It was hot, so I ran out of water pretty early on. I mean, we were probably a little bit like maybe 120K in. I know I was already pretty low in water, so I was just kind of desperately looking around, seeing if there was anywhere that I could stop to fill up my bottles. But I didn't want to lose the group because I
Yeah,
was we're making great time, right? We're going 26, 27 miles an hour. It was
yeah,
fantastic. So eventually my water was basically gone, and I thought I can't be riding this fast with no water. So I slowed down, let the A wave go, and of course 3 minutes later we go past this person on the side of the road that had a table with water jugs,
oh,
and
yeah,
I mean I remember it vividly. I pulled over and I just grabbed a jug and I was just downing water because I had been
yeah,
conserving. So it isn't just that I ran out. I had been conserving, so I was very thirsty.
yeah. So do you think, Cesar, that if you had enough water, would you have continued on with the A group, or was it just too fast?
I would have continued with them for quite a while longer. It was
Yeah,
nothing to do with energy levels. It was not fatigue yet.
yeah,
It was 100% the water. How long? I don't know how long I
yes,
could have hung out with them, but
yeah,
because also the terrain kind of changes.
yeah.
Um, but no, I wasn't really pushing myself in terms of power.
That's great. Yeah,
So yeah, so it was kind of a bummer.
yeah,
It was such an easy thing to
yeah.
just have
But
a third water
yeah,
bottle.
yeah. But fortunately, since you started in A, there's some very fast groups behind you, isn't that right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your
So
strategy, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, my strategy was exactly that. So when I let A group go, it was no problem. I knew there was B 15 minutes behind, right? Like no problem. And if that didn't work out, there was fast waves coming every 15
Yeah,
minutes. So I stopped. I got water from this wonderful person. They filled my water bottles. I was on my way, and then the B wave passed, and it must have been on a climb or somewhere they kind of caught me by surprise. I tried to sprint to kind of go on the back of that. That was not
yeah.
happening. So I was like, okay,
Okay. Yeah,
let's wait. So then C
yeah,
wave comes through, and I'm able to kind of hop on with them. And by now it's kind of getting dark, and so
yeah,
now the group kind of disperses a little bit more. Um,
yeah,
so it was just really riding within smaller pockets of riders. I found myself riding with one rider who had this like crazy bright headlight, and he didn't want to ride behind me because he wanted to see his light. Like he was
okay.
uncomfortable by my
Yeah,
regular dyno light. He had this big old
yeah,
battery light, And
Wow.
so, he would probably ride at the front for like 20 minutes and then have me ride
Nice.
at the front for 5. And,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, man, like that's wonderful.
Yeah. Does the speed naturally slow down a bit once it gets dark?
Yeah, that was my experience. It definitely slowed down a little bit. And it's also
Yeah.
like the groups, instead of kind of having a bunch of people, you start having lines. So you might have like 3 or 4 lines on the road, but they are lines. There is, one person behind another. It isn't kind of like this just blob of people.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it
Yeah.
feel Does it feel scary at night to travel pretty fast?
I did not feel any
Okay.
fear. I did not. I
Okay.
don't know
All
if
right.
I don't know
You're a young
why.
guy.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that must be why. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
did not have any fear of that. It actually felt a lot safer. Maybe it
Cool.
was just that early in the day had been so hectic that this felt
Yeah.
better in comparison.
I get you. And then things started getting bad. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So I got to the what is it, like 200K. And one of my friends from Portland actually, like, he happened to catch me right before that control. So, he
Yeah.
was like, oh, hey, he wasn't expecting to see me. So we went into the control, had some food together, and I kind of started having trouble getting it down, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I got a sandwich, but I probably ate like half of it, and I had a soda, and that's just not enough calories. And I was eating calories on board, but it was kind of
Yeah.
increasingly getting more and more difficult. So, left with my friend, maybe rode together for 30 minutes, if that. And I kind of said, you go. He was also going for a Charly Miller time, so
Yeah.
I didn't want him to slow him down. So he went, and I mean, very soon after that, it was just my stomach would just kind of shut down completely. And I think most people have experienced that, and so I
Yeah.
think people know what that feels like.
And had you experienced it before?
I had,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So it was something that I tried to prepare for,
Yeah.
but this was just so sudden. Like, it
Yeah.
had happened to me before, but it was always like I could feel it coming. Like I could feel it
Yeah.
coming. I knew I needed to slow down. I knew I needed to maybe, take a 30-minute break, try to slowly drink some water, try to
Yeah.
slowly take some. This was just sudden. This was like my stomach was just closed. Nothing was going
Okay.
in.
Closed for business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
close for
Okay.
business, not not
Yeah.
not happening. So I kept writing. It was the middle of the night, so now I'm annoyed because I know that kind of my goals are slipping away a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I guess in terms of goals, I'm kind of a obsessive spreadsheet person. So
Okay.
I had laid out on a
Yeah.
spreadsheet like kind of what is my realistic time, right? And no matter how much I moved, maybe stop a little bit less, maybe go a little
Yeah.
bit faster. I was right in the like 60 to 63 hours. That's
Yeah.
what I expected my body to be able to do.
Yeah.
So 57, 56:40 for Charly Miller was definitely going to be like everything has to be perfect, and I have to find some motivation to go even faster. I have to find a fast group that
Yeah.
just increases my average speed magically. Like something had to go really well for me. So
Yeah.
I definitely felt that slip away right then. Like okay,
Yeah.
not everything is going perfect. This is not happening. So
Yeah. But Cesar, at that point, you were just thinking, okay, I'm not going to do Charlie Miller. I can
right,
still probably do a pretty fast time.
right.
When did you start thinking, you know what? I don't think I'm going to finish it all. Your spreadsheet, was there a line for that?
No,
DNF?
no, there
No.
wasn't.
Okay.
There wasn't. Like I did
Yeah.
have like I had a printout that I had on top of my bag
Yeah.
that would kind of tell me, here is the like minimum speed time, and so I could kind of get like an idea of how much time in the bank I had. So
Yeah.
so we started so fast that I knew I had time in the bank. So I wasn't quite yet worried that I would go over the time limit. But just not being able to eat right
Yeah.
into the night is very difficult psychologically.
Yeah.
Um, my body
Completely.
was not doing well, but just kind
Yeah.
of having those, nothing felt right. My
Yeah.
stomach hurt. I was sleepy.
We,
Goals were kind of out the
yeah.
window. So like just psychologically, I was not
So
ready.
hard. Yeah.
I was just not ready for any of that.
Yeah. It's like solitary confinement on a bike. Your
Yeah,
brain starts getting dark after a while. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And like I would
Yeah.
get to some of these controls and I check in, try to eat, doesn't happen. Get back on the
Mm.
bike, and this is I think there is definitely a lot of ego in being young and fit.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
That I would get on the bike, and I would see people from much later waves, and
Yeah.
people who were much older than me,
Yeah.
and looking at least much less fit than me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, it's where the ego comes in,
It is.
and
Yeah.
I was just like, what is happening, you know? But yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, go
Go ahead.
ahead.
So then I just remember you got some medication. I forget what medication it was, but then you get to, I think
Ludiac.
you almost, oh, yeah. So you almost, well, tell us what happened at Ludiac, right? So you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
said,
So
yeah.
I really gotta do a plug for this medication. It was,
Okay.
I go to this pharmacy because I have just had I don't want to be too graphic, but I had just had a very forceful stomach moment on the side of the
Okay.
road.
Yeah.
And it made me feel a little bit better, but it was like, is this stomach acid? Like, I didn't think that's what it was,
Yeah.
but who cares? I'm just gonna go into this pharmacy, and I'm gonna ask for some magnesium,
Yeah.
and the pharmacist just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you
How's your
talking about?
French, Cesar?
Not
How's your
very
French?
good,
Not
not
good.
very good.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
she understood magnesium, so she
Okay.
said
Good.
like kind of like magnesium. Why do you need that? So we went
Yeah.
back and forth on Google Translate, and she was wonderful, and I didn't expect her to try to like tell me what I actually needed, because that's not kind of what American pharmacists do, right? Like American
Yeah.
pharmacists just fill out a prescription and that's about it.
Yeah.
But she was wonderful. She told me, this is what you need. Take one before every meal. Don't exceed 4 per day. And I said, thank you. I went outside and I took 2. I didn't even try to have food because I knew it wasn't going to work. So
Nice.
I was just like, let's try to nuke my stomach.
Yeah.
Let's see if something works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I rode a short distance to Ludiac, and Rusa had organized for a drop bag, so I had a drop bag there. And by then I just feel awful. In my head, I had just done this for 12 hours, like 12 hours of not eating or drinking, and I had been
Yeah.
riding my bike in this heat. And I said, I can't do this for another 800K. Like I'm a
Yeah.
third of the way there. I can't do
Yeah.
this for 800K. So I talked to the volunteers there, and I said, you know what, guys, I'm quitting. And they kind of looked at me like I was talking crazy, which I think I was, and it's fair. And
Yeah.
they said, well, dude, you have a lot of time in the bank. Like, what do you mean you're
Yeah.
quitting? And I'm like, I feel terrible, man. And they're like, well, don't
Yeah.
do anything. Don't do anything you can't reverse. That's kind of what they said.
Yes.
So if you're
Smart.
gonna
Yeah.
spend time here, go try to eat, take a shower,
Yeah.
go to sleep, do whatever. Don't turn in your card, because once you turn it in, they're not giving it back to you.
Yeah.
So, I took a shower, and I happened to have jeans and street clothes in my bag, so I just put on some jeans, and I was
Yeah.
texting my friends like, F this, I'm quitting, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Texting my wife, and just then Ian Hands just saw me. I didn't see him. He saw me, and he's, why the heck are you wearing jeans? So I looked around, and then just, I
Yeah.
gave him my sob story, and he's not sympathetic.
He's not taking it.
He
No.
doesn't. He's like, so,
Yeah.
like, get on your bike, dude. And I'm like, you don't
Yeah.
get it. I can't eat. So, by this time, I had probably consumed like 4 of these anti-acid things without any
Yeah.
success. So I just kind of followed Ian into the cafeteria again, and I don't know how many trays of food I had thrown away too, because I just couldn't
Okay.
consume them. And I get some food, and I'm able to like put it down. I'm like, okay, like not only was I able to consume it,
Yeah.
but like it felt good. Like it felt good to finally get some food in my gut.
Yeah.
So I probably overate there, because I was like, I can eat. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go to
Yeah.
town on this, and Ian and his crew from North Carolina were super gracious, and they were like,
That's
hop
great.
on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I rode out of Ludiac with them, and I was because I was so close to turning in my card. I mean, I was
Yeah.
looking at train tables. That's how close I was. I was looking at train tables, like,
Yeah.
how do I get back to Paris?
Yeah, like I think it's a very interesting mindset that happens. It just grows in your brain, all right?
Yeah,
It gets darker and darker, and after a while, I said, F this, I'm not doing this,
yeah,
I'm done.
yeah.
But you were really lucky to find the right person to kind of shock you out of that mindset, essentially.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. We had Mark Thomas, your buddy, I think,
Hmm.
on this before. And I
Hmm.
remember one of his tips was for dark moments, like think beforehand, like before the event, what am I going to do if I enter a dark moment? Which I think is a really smart
Yeah,
advice, right? Because you're not rational at that moment at all.
yeah.
So it's helpful. Cool. So then you got back on the bike. You're doing great again. Everything's good.
Yeah, well, I was feeling better. I was trying to
Yeah.
eat at every opportunity. Like if my stomach felt like I could take it in, I was doing it, and I wasn't going deep on the bike. Like I was not trying
Yeah.
to like Charly Miller was out of the question now. So I was just trying to ride fast, but not
Yeah.
really try to do anything crazy. So I think that helped. So I rode with those guys for a little bit, which is always good. Gets your mind off of things.
Completely.
You're just talking with somebody, and they're big jokesters. So we were just kind of having fun on bikes,
Yeah.
which is really what PvP is all about. Like just
Yeah.
having fun on bikes.
Yeah.
So eventually I did leave them because of the whole, they were driving a little bit slower than I wanted to, and they were
Yep.
going for Adrian hands.
Exactly.
So they were having a party, like every
There's
every
a
possible.
disconnect there,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Every possible
Yeah.
stop they were stopping. So
Yeah.
eventually I left them. I thanked them for kind of bringing me back from the brink,
Yeah.
and I went my way, and kind of just as I was getting to that big climb between Carhay, I think, and Brest, I was just in a groove, and I was very amazed. I mean, 5 6 hours before, I was about to quit, and here I
Yeah.
was like climbing, feeling
I know.
great. People who I'm sure started way after me were I was passing them, but I felt so
Yeah.
good, like I was
Yeah.
making up ground, and I knew I
Yeah.
was gonna make it to Brest. Like I knew I was gonna
Yes.
sleep at Brest. So
Like, like it is amazing because I know you made it to Brest in 31 hours.
yep.
After all that drama, 31 hours is not bad. It is incredible to me how the human mind and body can find these pockets of strength after just these very, very dark moments. Like
Yeah.
just, yeah, cool. So then you turned around and everything went extremely well.
Well, that third day was probably the best cycling day I've had in my life. I mean, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
I rode 400K that day. So from
Wow.
Brest to
Did you sleep in
I
Brest at
I
all?
did. I did. I was
Yeah.
I was immensely lucky in Brest. It was a zoo when I got there. There were people like laying everywhere outside the university or
Yeah.
college, whatever that is. I was ready to. I saw one of my buddies there, and he was like, "Yeah, there's no beds. You're gonna have to find a patch of grass if you can, right?"
Yeah.
So I go into the dormitory hoping to just get a shower. And as I'm in line to pay, someone comes down and whispers something to the ear of the person who's taking in the money, and she just looks up and she says, "Oh, 3 beds just turned over. Do you
Wow.
guys need a bed?" Like, it was just an
Yeah.
avalanche of people, right? Like
I
jumping,
love
like
it.
yes,
Yeah.
but I'm second in line. I'm like, look, wow, I couldn't believe it. Like, I had a
That's
bed.
crazy. Yeah.
So it was absolutely crazy. So yeah. So
And how many hours did you get, do you think? Sleep?
5 hours, I think. Yeah.
Wow. See, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It was huge. But so that was
Yeah.
another thing. Like it felt good. I didn't have that like fast, Charlie
Yeah.
Miller chains on me anymore. So I was like, I'm gonna sleep. Like
Yeah.
my body just took me there, it took me here, and I need to kind of slow down and do something. So
Yeah.
yeah, I took a shower and I slept for 5 hours.
So do you think then once you get back on the bike, there's no way you're not finishing this at that point? You
Yeah,
felt you'd overcome all your dark moments.
I think so.
Okay.
I think by then I felt that, just looking at the numbers, once you leave Brest, you've done more than you have left to do.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the mindset that I had, like
Yeah.
I have less to go than what I have completed. So
Yeah.
I must be able to do it.
No,
Um,
that's cool.
yeah,
So anything else to talk about before we get towards the end? Because I like that story about the pace lining
yeah.
group towards the end. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
I mean, that day number 3 was, it was again, it was hot. Every day I thought it was
Yeah.
hotter, and I think every day was hotter.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the only one little bit is maybe towards the end of that day 3 was I was riding alongside with this guy from Italy, and he was like dangling one leg off the bike, and we got talking, and he just had terrible knee pain, like something with his
Oh,
knee, he just couldn't handle it, and so we're like riding side by side, and he's pedaling with one leg, right? And
Oh my God.
so I kind of
Yeah.
offer him my wheel. I'm like, well, you wanna,
Yeah.
get back
Yeah.
there, and I'll try to tow you for a little while. So, we spent maybe like an hour or two together. It was
That's
great.
great.
I think it
Yeah.
got a little bit climby after that, and
Yeah.
so he kind of dropped back, but
And
I could not believe
yeah.
it.
And Cesar, the heat issue. Do you ride in heat in Portland a lot or?
Not like that, unfortunately. No, I
Okay.
mean, like we do have heat waves here, so I have ridden in heat like that, but yeah, that was just something else, I guess.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you're getting towards the end. I think I remember reading you stopped at 200 from the end, 200 kilometers. Was it
Yeah.
true or something? I never remember the names of the places,
Yeah,
but
I stopped at
yeah.
Valence, which is about
Okay.
200K. Yeah, Valence is about 200K. That was my intention for that day number 3, to
Yeah.
go 400K to Valence. That way, my last day was 200K, which like 200K is just a good number, right? Like I can do it, even if I'm
Perfect.
really
Yeah.
tired. I can do 200K.
Yeah.
So I got there, 2 a.m. I slept for, I took a shower and slept for an hour or two.
Very civilized. Great. That's good. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
You see, not doing Charly Miller, it's so much more fun, isn't it?
it is, it
And
is, like,
dignified. Yeah.
yeah, and it was all like I wanted to be on the road by 5 in the morning, So
Yeah.
if I got somewhere early, that meant I slept a little bit more. This
Yeah.
place I got there at 2 in the morning. Still, my go time was 5 a.m. So I
Yeah.
only got a couple hours of
Smart.
sleep. But
Yeah.
but to me, a shower is just a
Yeah.
shower is better than sleep.
Okay. Yeah. And so anyway, then you got on that final 200. Maybe you want to tell us about the pace lining people, we'll
Yeah,
call them.
yeah. So yeah, on that last 200, it was probably within the last 100K maybe. It gets pretty flat, and kind of pace lining is very good. So I
Yeah.
had been with this group. There were 3 people who knew each other. Like they knew each other, and they were just riding together. And behind them there was me and probably another 3 or 4 people. So it was like a group
Yeah.
of 7 or 8 with 3 in the front who didn't want us to pull. They didn't seem to mind that we were with them and we were drafting them. And again, this was very civilized. We were not like wheel to wheel or anything.
Yeah.
It was I think safe, or as safe as you can be, with that many hours on your legs.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
yeah, so whenever somebody tried to like go to the front and take a turn, they kind of refused it, and would go to the front themselves. So yeah, so we were doing that. I was somewhere in the middle of that group, and we come around a left turn, and just because people kind of split when they go around turns, I ended up second wheel behind one of these leaders. And I kind of heard a conversation behind me from the other two, and next thing I know, one of them is shoulder to shoulder, kind of points like at the wheel in front of me, but without any hesitation, just goes in and pushes me, and I have no room to my right. I'm squeezed between like the ditch and maybe like 6 inches of like gravel, dirt,
Yeah.
shoulder. So I think by a pure miracle I didn't go down. Uh,
Amazing. And it was clearly intentional. Is that right?
I don't think it was. I don't think their intention was to make me crash, but I
Yeah.
think their intention was very much, don't be on this wheel. This is my wheel. Get out of here. And had we been closer to the middle of the road, that action
Yeah.
of pushing me out of the way would have been aggressive but safe, because I
Yeah.
could have just moved over. But
Yeah.
I didn't have anywhere to move over. There was a ditch.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm pretty sure. So that was probably kilometer 1100. So they probably left a wake of people that they nearly ran off the road. Kind of a weird energy, huh?
yeah. So again, I was also very exhausted. So I kind of gather myself back up, and
Yeah.
I sprint up to that group again, and I had enough energy to catch them again, and I yell some profanities at them, have kind of a heated exchange, and then I
I
just
love it.
hit the accelerator and
Yeah.
leave them behind, like at a speed that's absolutely not sustainable. Like I can't
Okay.
sustain that kind of power or speed. But I was
Yeah.
angry, right? And I was gonna show
Of
it again. Go
course.
back to the
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, eventually that group caught me again, and the guy who had kind of pushed me off the road, he kind of split from the group as I was moving over, trying to avoid conflict, and he apologized. He said he was sorry. He extended his hand. We kind of shook hands on the bike, and kind of that was it, right? And
That's
I'm
cool.
glad he did that, just because
Yes.
at least it felt that he knew
Yeah.
that, and I felt that he wasn't trying to crash me out, like
Yeah.
that
But
that
yeah,
he had
still
just
not a
done like a
very
knucklehead thing, but not
yeah.
like trying to actively injure me.
Cool. All right. So then you get to the finish. We've talked about that. So
Hmm.
maybe I'll just ask a few other questions before we talk about the 3 tips. Maybe just a few comments on the people of Brittany, people beside the road, the support, etc.
Uh, I mean, I just did not imagine that type of welcome. It is such a cycling culture, and you don't grasp it until you're there. Like, they're just excited to see all these people on bikes.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, like, there was the help on the side of the road with the water that was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, I had some crepes on the side of the road from somebody, like, out of their car. They just had like their trunk open, and a table and a couple chairs, and I got there, and I just kind of sat on the ground, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, here's a chair for you, and I'm like, I can't even get up. like I just want to sit
Yeah.
here, and we had a good laugh, and there was a young girl there, maybe like 7 or 8 years old, and she was just excited to practice her English, and
So special. Yeah.
she kept asking me if I wanted cake, and I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm just eating this crepe, and she like
Yeah.
really wanted me to have cake, and I'm like, okay, I'll have a piece of cake, and it was delicious, she
Yeah.
was right, so.
Yeah. No, it is so special. It really reminds me of where I grew up in Ireland, just the landscape, the
Hmm.
people. There's a kind of a shyness about the people, but they're just so warm.
Yeah.
And any similarities with Portland or Mexico?
I would say with Mexico for sure. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, kind of like you said, it's just really warm people, like, that are just kind of like giving you whatever they have, right? Like
Completely.
yeah, exactly. It's just like they really want to participate, and the way to
Yeah.
participate is to, like, if you want to stop here and have a bite, and kind of have a chat
Yeah.
with us, like, please do it. And it was always just, so
So cool.
welcoming, so cool. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So are we going to see you in 2027?
I hope so. I hope so. So my 2-year-old is now 3, and we have a second one on the way. So
Oh, yeah,
so
that's tough.
so my
Yeah.
my wife is wonderful, but
Yeah.
two kids, it
Yeah.
changes the equation, and it is also gonna change how much I can train.
Completely. Like, I think it's actually very like the bulge, right? This is how I describe it, right?
Hmm.
So I went to PBP after my kids got older. You
Hmm.
managed to go kind of before,
Yeah.
but there's a whole kind of a bulge, a multi year period where it's much more challenging. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you
But I'm
never
hoping
know.
to. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
hopeful. I'm
exactly,
hopeful.
exactly. Yeah, cool. Okay, Cesar, we're going to end with 3 of your tips um, that guarantee a finish, maybe a fast finish. So, tip number 1.
Uh, Shoot. So I think tip number one, and I think it's a variation on what are you gonna do when you get to that dark spot on your ride, is
Yeah.
to, like, um, never quit until you're out of time. Like, that should be
Okay.
when you quit. Like, and
Okay.
even if it's official versus in your mind
Yeah.
having checked out, I think that's number one, is, like,
It's a
do
good
not
tip. Yeah.
quit on if you have time. If you have time to go, do not quit. Um, I think number two, for going with a fast time, I think probably pack a little bit lighter. I think I overpacked.
Okay.
I was very nervous. I'm an over preparer, so I
Okay.
just had, I had a change of clothes in my bike. I had everything under the sun with
Yes.
me on my bike, and it kind of gave me, like, a little bit of assurance, but also I was
Yeah.
probably running way heavier than I needed to.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think honestly the last one is just to rest. I think there is a lot of benefit that I had after kind of recovering from almost DNFing, on just that micro rest. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of spots where I knew I was rolling slow, right? Like, I would look down at my speed, and I was rolling at 11, 12, 13 miles an hour, and I would pull over for like a 10-minute rest. And again, like you pull over and there's a patch of grass with like 20 other people who are doing the exact same thing, and so you can have a conversation. You can meet someone new, and you get back on the bike, and even if you're not going faster, you feel better, and feeling better is almost the same as going faster.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. I was thinking, Cesar, you're going to have to look at, if you don't manage to make it to 2027, you're going to have to look at if there's any other Mexicans that go faster in
Yeah,
2027.
I know. I'm gonna have to look at that for sure. But hey, before this PBP, 3 people signed up as Mexican nationals. All 3 completed it this year.
Yeah.
And now the completion percentage is about 50%. So I think that was a good
That's cool.
a good win from 2023.
Cool. Cesar, it's been a complete pleasure. I really appreciate all your time and insight. Really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.